Ahead of the presentation of the 2020 media budget last Thursday, the Chamber of Independent Power Producers and Bulk Consumers had appealed to government to capture the payment of the about $1.4 billion debt owed them in the budget. But the finance minister was silent on the debt. As a result, the Chamber says it is meeting for the next line of action, but noted that the IPPs cannot guarantee full supply of power. According to the Chamber, as at 30th June 2020, the cumulative indebtedness to the IPPs was about $1.4 billion, and it continues to accumulate. Out of the $1.4 billion, 1.5% represents the unsettled legacy debt, which dates back to 2016. About 78% also represent the cumulative invoices from the PDS era to date, and the remaining 20.5% represents the default claims with respect to their power purchase agreements. The Chamber, which is made up of the Sunon Asogli Power Ghana Limited, BXC Solar Ghana, Senate Ghana Limited, Sen Power Generation Company Limited, and Car Powership Ghana Limited, has repeatedly complained that the continuous accumulation of debt is forcing them to contract costly loans to sustain their operations. Earlier this year, they warned that power consumers could be faced with severe power outages over the unpaid debt. They have also asked government to review taxes and levies imposed on electricity to bring some relief to consumers, as it has made the industry non-competitive, overburdening industry and households. Government says it captured the debt in the May 2020 budget in November last year, and that plans are in place to pay the arrears after addressing a number of issues, including the renegotiation of excess capacity charges and revenue shortfalls by the end of the year. Executive Director of the Institute of Energy Security, Nana Amoesi VII, tells Citi Business News government must do the needful, even if it means meeting the IPPs halfway.
Now the question about IPPs. Yes, of course, they're entitled to their money when they produce, just like any other entity that contributes to our power sector. But because they are owed in excess of $1.3 billion, they've threatened on several occasions that they could shut down their system because they are unable to operate. If they do good their word, it means that we have a huge problem as a country. In fact, they contribute huge, close to 2,000 megawatts of the power that we consume. And so if the system should go down, our peak demand today, close to 3,000 megawatts. Taking this 2,000 out of the system, are we saying that government utilities are the power they produce is enough to keep us? Aside your peak demand or the rate of about 3,000, you need to have at least 17 or 18% reserve margin to cushion any eventuality. When this IPP system goes down, we'll suffer as a country. And so we pray that government will be able to find some money to cushion them. We are sure that government will be able to pay all the 1.4 billion they mentioned, but at least to meet them halfway. And we also speak for the state-owned utilities. They also demand government attention.
In the long term, however, the Institute of Energy Security says the only way to deal with the recurring energy sector debt is to make renewable energy, which comes at cheaper cost, a critical component of Ghana's power mix.
The way we've structured our energy sector, I am unable to state clearly that we'll overcome this debt. In fact, it will live with us for a very long time, because if you look at the cost of power generation, cost of transmission and distribution combined, they far outweigh what we pay as consumers. We pay more because we source for power from sources that are quite expensive in nature. If we're looking at just hydro, for example, VRA will give us less than 3 cents per kilowatt hour. We will give us somewhere around 8 cents per kilowatt hour. What about the IPPs? On average terms, you have to pay them about 15 cents per kilowatt hour. Quite expensive. And so it is the way we procured our power sources that's been the main challenge. That's why it's very necessary to dilute this by the introduction of other cheaper sources like renewables, which we are sure that you will have to get. If you do competitive bidding and auctioning, you will get less than 10 cents per kilowatt hour, so that we can dilute the situation. Good to cushion the consumer, but who pays for the cost? Government. Who feeds government with money? It's the same consumer. And government will tell you today that they paid all this debt. Who did they pay to? The government utilities are suffering. In fact, if any money comes into the system, even though the IPPs contribute less than 40% of the power that we consume as a country, they get more than 70% of the revenue when it comes. So it means that the state-owned utilities are bleeding. They just have enough just to keep afloat.